My love, I saw your message. I read every word, slowly more than once, not because I didn't understand it, but because I felt it. And God, it stayed with me. You were there in those words. Your heart, your pain, your love, reaching out to me. And I know. You waited for a reply, you kept checking your phone, hoping to see my name light up your screen. But I didn't respond, not because I didn't care, not because you don't matter, and definitely not because I forgot you. The truth is, sometimes silence carries more weight than words. Sometimes, the heart is so full that it doesn't know how to speak without breaking. And tonight, I want to tell you the truth. The reason I couldn't reply. The reason I stayed quiet. Even when all I wanted was you, my love. I saw your message. It wasn't just a notification to me. It wasn't something I could glance at and move past. It was you reaching out, quietly, vulnerably, in a way only you can. I remember the moment it appeared on my screen. Everything around me was moving, the world was loud, people were talking. Life was happening, but somehow in that exact second everything slowed down. Because your name carries a kind of gravity in my world that nothing else does. I opened it carefully, almost like I was afraid of what I might feel when I did. And when I read your words, I didn't just read them once. I read them again and again, each time slower than the last. Because your words don't just sit on the surface, they sink deep. They echo, they stay. There was something in the way you wrote to me. Something soft, something honest, something that didn't try to hide behind strength. You were just you, and that's what made it so hard for me. Because when you are real with me like that, it reaches parts of me that I don't always know how to handle. I could feel you in every sentence. The pauses between your words, the weight behind them, the things you said and even the things you didn't say. It felt like you were standing right in front of me, looking at me the way you do when you're trying to understand what I'm not saying out loud. And I knew you were waiting. I could imagine you holding your phone, maybe unlocking it more often than you wanted to admit, hoping to see my reply. Maybe you told yourself it didn't matter that much, but deep down it did. Because when it comes to us, silence never feels small. It always feels like something, and I hate that part, the part where my silence becomes a question in your heart. But what you didn't see, what you couldn't see through that screen, was everything that was happening inside me at that moment. Because the truth is, I didn't ignore you, I froze, not in the way people usually think. Not out of indifference, not out of distance, but because your message didn't just ask for a reply. It asked for something real. And I've always believed that when it comes to you. I can't give you anything less than the truth, even if that truth takes time to find. There are moments in life when words come easily, when you can type something, send it, and feel fine about it. But this wasn't one of those moments. This was one of those rare, heavy moments where every word matters, where every sentence carries weight, where you know that what you say will stay. And I didn't want to respond with something empty. I didn't want to send you a message that sounded right but felt wrong. I didn't want to hide behind simple words like "I'm okay" or "don't worry" when the truth was more complicated than that. Because you deserve more than surface-level comfort. You deserve honesty, even when it's messy, even when it's hard. But honesty isn't always easy to speak. Sometimes it sits inside your chest, heavy and quiet, refusing to turn into words. Sometimes it makes you question yourself before you even begin to express it. And sometimes it makes you afraid. Not of the other person, not of their reaction, but of what it means to finally let it out. That's where I was, staring at your message, feeling everything, and not knowing how to say it in a way that wouldn't break something between us. Because, my love, you matter to me in a way that changes how I speak. It changes how I think. It makes me more careful, more aware, sometimes even more silent than I want to be. I kept typing and deleting, typing something, reading it back, and realizing it didn't carry the truth I felt inside. Deleting it again, starting over, pausing. Staring at the screen like it might somehow give me the right words if I waited long enough. Minutes passed, then more, and with every passing moment the silence grew heavier. Not because I didn't want to reply, but because I wanted to reply the right way. But the right way doesn't always come quickly. There's something about deep feelings that doesn't rush. They take their time, they unfold slowly, and when you try to force them into quick words, they lose their meaning. They become smaller than what they truly are, and I couldn't do that to you. I couldn't reduce what I feel for you into something rushed, something incomplete, something that didn't reflect the depth of what was happening inside me. So I stayed there, in that space between wanting to speak and not knowing how. And I know, from your side, it probably just looked like silence. Just another moment where I didn't respond. But for me, it wasn't empty. It was full of thoughts, full of emotions, full of things I wish I could have said in that exact moment but couldn't shape into words. I thought about you, about the way you care, the way you show up, the way you express yourself without holding back. And I wondered if my silence was hurting you in ways I didn't intend. I wondered if you were questioning me, questioning us, questioning whether I felt the same way you do. And that thought, it stayed with me. Because the last thing I ever want is for you to feel like you're alone in something that matters to both of us. But sometimes, even when your heart is in the right place, your actions don't reflect it immediately. Sometimes love doesn't look like instant replies. Sometimes it looks like someone sitting with your words, holding them carefully, trying to understand them completely before responding. And that's what I was doing. Holding your message, not just reading it, but feeling it, trying to meet it with the same depth you gave me. Because you didn't send me something casual, you sent me something real. And real things deserve time, they deserve presence, they deserve thought. They deserve honesty, and I didn't want to give you anything less than that. So I stayed quiet, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I had too much. Too many thoughts, too many feelings, too many things that needed to be understood before they could be expressed. And in that silence, I was still with you. Just not in a way you could see, my love. There was something you couldn't see when you sent that message. Not because you weren't paying attention, but because I didn't let you see it. I've always tried to be strong in front of you. Not the kind of strength that hides everything, but the kind that doesn't place its weight on your shoulders. And maybe that's where I made it harder for you to understand me. Because while you were reaching out to me with your heart, I was standing in the middle of a quiet storm inside my own. There are battles that don't make noise, they don't announce themselves. They don't show up in obvious ways. They happen quietly, in the way your chest feels heavy for no clear reason. In the way your thoughts refuse to slow down. In the way even the simplest things begin to feel complicated. That's where I was, not lost, but not okay either. And I didn't know how to tell you that without feeling like I was pulling you into something you didn't deserve to carry. Because when I think of you, I don't think of someone I should burden. I think of someone I want to protect, even from the parts of me that aren't easy to understand. So instead of speaking, I stayed quiet, not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't trust myself to explain it the right way. You see, when your heart is heavy, your words don't come out clearly. They come out incomplete, sometimes confusing, sometimes even distant. And the last thing I wanted was for you to read something from me and feel like I was pulling away. Because I was, if anything, I was holding on tighter than ever. But from your side, silence doesn't look like holding on, it looks like distance. It looks like absence, it looks like something slowly fading. And that thought, it stayed in the back of my mind the entire time. I kept thinking, what if she thinks I don't care? What if she feels alone right now? What if my silence says something I do mean? And still, I couldn't type the words, because the truth inside me wasn't simple. It wasn't something I could wrap into a neat sentence and send. It was layered, messy, still unfolding, and I didn't want to give you a version of it that wasn't real. I didn't want to pretend I was okay just to make the moment easier. I didn't want to say everything is fine when it was. Because you deserve honesty. Not comfort built on something incomplete, but honesty takes courage, and in that moment, I was still finding mine. I was trying to understand what I was feeling before I asked you to understand it too. Because love isn't just about sharing the good parts. It's also about knowing when you're not ready to speak and choosing silence instead of saying something that might hurt the person you care about. That's what I chose, not because it was the best choice, but because it felt like the safest one at the time. For you, for us, and I know, it might not have felt that way to you. It might have felt like I disappeared, like I left you in a moment where you needed me. And that's the part that stays with me the most, because even in my silence, you were still on my mind. You didn't leave my thoughts, not for a second. I carried your message with me. Through everything I was feeling, I replayed your words, trying to find the right way to meet them, trying to become calm enough, clear enough, honest enough, to respond in a way that wouldn't confuse you or hurt you. But healing your own thoughts takes time, and during that time, the world doesn't pause. Messages stay unread, or read without reply, and people we care about are left wondering why. If I could go back to that moment, I would at least tell you this. I'm here, I'm just trying to find the right words. Because that was the truth. I wasn't gone, I wasn't ignoring you, I wasn't choosing distance. I was choosing honesty, even if it meant being silent a little longer than I should have been. And maybe I underestimated how much that silence would affect you. Because when feelings are real, even a small delay can feel like something bigger. And I never wanted to make you feel like you were waiting alone. You were. Even in my quiet, I was still with you, just trying to gather the pieces of myself, so that when I finally spoke, I could give you something real, something honest, something that reflects what you truly mean to me, my love. Even when I didn't reply, even when the silence stretched longer than it should have, even when you started to wonder what it meant, I never left you. That's the part I wish you could feel. The part that doesn't show on a screen. The part that lives quietly, deeper than words ever could. Because love, real love, doesn't disappear in silence. It doesn't fade just because a message wasn't answered right away. It doesn't weaken in the space between two replies. If anything, sometimes it becomes even more present, just unseen. You see, while you were waiting for my words, I was holding on to you in ways I didn't know how to explain. Not through typing, not through sending something quickly just to fill the gap, but through feeling everything you mean to me all at once. And that feeling, it's not small. It's not something I can reduce into a few lines and press, send, like it's just another moment. Because with you, nothing has ever felt like just another moment. Every word matters. Every silence matters. Every little space between us carries something real. And I know, from where you were standing, it didn't feel like that. It probably felt like distance, like I stepped back without telling you. Like I chose not to meet you where you were, but the truth is, I was still right there, just not in a way you could see. There are times when love speaks loudly. Clear, immediate, impossible to miss. And then there are times when love becomes quiet. Not because it's gone, but because it's overwhelmed by everything it's trying to hold. That's what happened to me. I felt so much that I didn't trust myself to say it right. And I would rather stay silent for a moment than speak in a way that doesn't honor what we have. Because what we have, it matters too much to me to treat it lightly. You matter too much. I didn't want to send you words that felt empty. Words that looked right on the surface, but didn't carry the truth underneath. I didn't want to respond just for the sake of responding. I wanted to respond in a way that felt like me. Real, steady, honest, something you could believe. Because you deserve that. You deserve more than quick replies. You deserve presence, even if it takes a little longer to arrive. And I know that doesn't erase the feeling of waiting. It doesn't change the moments where you looked at your phone, hoping, wondering, maybe even questioning. I know silence can create stories in the mind. Stories that aren't always kind. Maybe you thought I was pulling away. Maybe you felt like you cared more than I did. Maybe you wondered if something had changed, and if those thoughts crossed your mind. I understand why. Because when someone matters to you, their absence feels louder than anything they could say. But listen to me. Really listen to this part. Nothing about how I feel for you changed in that silence. Not even a little, if anything. It reminded me how deeply you're a part of me. Because your message didn't just pass through my day. It stayed with me. It followed me into every quiet moment. It lingered in my thoughts when everything else faded away. That's not what distance looks like. That's not what losing someone looks like. That's what holding on looks like. Even when you're not speaking. I carried you with me. In a way that words couldn't capture yet. And maybe that's the part that's hardest to explain. Because we've been taught that love should always be visible. Always expressed, always immediate. But sometimes, love is quiet, sometimes it's patient. Sometimes it waits until it can be honest, instead of just being fast. And that's the kind of love I have for you, not rushed, not careless. Not something I throw into a message without thinking. It's something I feel deeply, constantly, even in silence. And I know that silence can be misunderstood. It can feel like a gap. Like something missing. Like a question without an answer. But for me, it was never empty, it was full of you. Full of everything you mean to me. Everything I didn't want to express the wrong way. Everything I needed to understand before I spoke. Because when I speak to you, I don't want to guess. I don't want to send something halfway true. I want to give you something real. Something that reflects exactly what's in my heart. And sometimes, getting to that truth takes time, more time than I wish it did. More time than you deserve to wait, and for that, I feel it. I feel the weight of those moments where you were left without my words. Because if the roles were reversed, I know I would have felt it too. That quiet uncertainty. That small ache of not knowing. That question sitting in the back of your mind. And I never wanted to be the cause of that for you. But even in that, my love didn't disappear. It didn't fade. It didn't weaken. It didn't step back. It stayed steady, quiet, real. Just waiting for the moment when I could finally give it a voice that matched what I truly feel. Because you're not someone I respond to casually. You're someone I feel deeply. Someone I think about carefully. Someone I never want to misunderstand or be misunderstood by. And that kind of connection, it doesn't always move fast, but it moves honestly. And I choose that every time. Even if it means being silent for a little while. Until I can speak in a way that truly belongs to us.